This handout is about Problets. So let me talk about Problets. Now, Problets are a software, excuse me, Problets are online software that you can use in your programming classes. They are meant to be supplements to classroom instruction and complements to programming projects. Let me explain what I mean by this. They are supplements as in they don't do any instruction. They are about problem solving. You send your students to solve problems on the site on specific topics like loops, while loops, for loops, selection statements, if statements, switch statements, and so on. You may not want to or be able to cover all aspects of a programming concept in class. For instance, when I teach I teach C++ often, and I talk about, say, switch statements, or even in Java, it's the same thing. You do not, in Java, for switch statements, the condition cannot be a real value, a real variable, or a real expression, and the case values cannot be variables. Now, in the first class, you don't want to talk about this. It'll just confuse the students no end. You just want to, what I call, teach to the middle, right? I mean, you want to give them the cases that apply the most often and leave out the special cases for later on. So when I talk about supplementing a classroom instruction, that's what I mean. There are all these other cases that they still need to know, but you may not want to cover in your first day of classes. That's where Problets comes in. It also complements programming projects. Problets are not meant to be a substitute for programming because they don't let them write code. They are about solving problems to understand how the concepts work, so it's a complement. Once they see how code is used in Problets, they can probably transfer that over to how they write code in their own projects. This is all about problem solving. This is about active learning, so they solve problems and learn actively, do something in order to learn. And Problets are actually delivered over the web as Java applets, which means it's self-paced. You don't have to actually have your students do this in class. You can have them do this at any time after class as a supplement, and they could be using it at 2 in the morning. Actually, a lot of students do use Problets at 2 in the morning. Let's talk about what Problets do. I mean, your audience may not be up at 2 in the morning, but Problets present problems. And the way they present problems is not randomized. For instance, let's take selection statements, if-else statements, right? There are about 15 concepts that have been identified in if-else statements. How does an if-else statement behave if the condition is true? How does it behave if it is false? What about nested if-else statements where the inside if-else depends on the outside if-else? What about back-to-back if-else statements, and so on and so forth? So it presents problems based on these concepts. It doesn't just randomly generate problems. It presents problems on each of these concepts and has the student work through those problems. It grades the student's answer. It asks the student to solve the problem, and it immediately says your answer is correct or not. But in addition to that, it provides instant feedback. If the student's answer is incorrect, it actually explains the correct answer step by step, line by line, okay? Which means that students can actually read through this explanation and learn on their own time. I have actually had students write feedback saying, oh, now I understand how loops work, because in class they may not have paid attention, they may have been paying attention to the student next to them, but now they are on their own time, they are paying attention, and they understand how these constructs work. It also records students' performance, how many problems the student solved on that particular concept, and how much the student scored, and so on and so forth. So you can ask for a summary, and you get a summary of the student usage of each problem. All right, the types of problems that Problets provide: debugging programs, not syntactic errors. Often it's semantic errors. Okay, for instance, I don't know that you use pointers, but in pointers is dangling pointers, lost objects. In functions, for instance, mismatch in the number of parameters is a syntax error. Mismatch in the number of parameters, the data types of parameters. These are the hard concepts for them. They don't really get these, easily. What is printed by this program? In other words, they have to simulate the program in their head and specify what the program prints line by line. They can't just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'll have to say it prints 1 on line 11, 2 on line 13, back to 3 on line 11, 4 on line 13, and then 5 on line 20. They have to identify the output as well as the line that produced that output. The idea here is that they have to have a correct mental model in order to solve these problems correctly. Show the changes in an array after the loop. Arrays are hard. People don't get the the subscript starting at 0 concept easily. So they are shown what the array contains before a line and asked to specify what it contains after a line. So that's the state of an array. Also, expression evaluation. Funny thing is, we don't really think expressions are hard, but expressions constitute 40% of any code, and that's where people make a lot of the mistakes. So evaluating an expression is where they have to specify each step, identify each operator one at a time, specify the intermediate result, so there is no confusion as to, well, this just gives you 20. Well, they can't do that. They have to solve the problem step by step. These are not multiple choice problems, and therefore it's not like they can just guess A, if not try B, if not try C. There's something else about these problems. Before that, let me talk about the topics. It covers all 5 expressions: arithmetic, relational, logical, assignment, and bitwise. By the way, remember, I don't know that you'll teach bitwise, but it doesn't hurt for them to know bitwise. I don't teach bitwise, but I ask them to use Problets. Hey, left shift, right shift, easy to multiply and divide. So go figure it from using Problets. Talks about if else, switch, nested selection statements. Talks about all 3 loops: while, for, do while loops. Also break, continue. I don't know if you cover these materials. You don't have to. Okay, Problets are so designed that you can use only what you want to use. Nested loops. And when it comes to functions, the behavior of functions, debugging functions. The functions is such a large concept that I had to break it up into 2. Okay, your behavior has 10 or 12 concepts, and debugging has 10 or 12 concepts. And then there is recursion. You don't have to use recursion. That's a separate module. And then there is one-dimensional arrays. There is classes, access mechanisms in classes. Now, altogether, Problets are about 17 different modules. Okay, so for instance, if and if else is one module, switch is another module, while is a module, for is a module, and so on and so forth. So you can have them use whichever module you want them to use. You don't have to use all of them. You can have them use any module as many times as you want. It's all web-based. There is no metering. They can actually use it as often as they want to practice solving these problems. And you can use these modules at your own pace. You want to use classes first, knock yourself out. You want to use loops last, that's fine with me. It doesn't matter to me, right? So it's all up to you how you want to use these modules. And here is something else. A module on while loops, right? The problems on while loops do not use if-else statements or switch statements. Why? Because I don't want them to get a problem incorrect because they don't understand if-else statements. They have to get it incorrect because they don't understand while loops or for loops, right? So there is very little of cross-talk between these modules. Exceptions are recursion. You have to know if-else if you want to get to recursion. So there are some exceptions, but basic concepts, there is really no cross-talk. So you can actually use these modules in any order. All right, parameterized problems. This is an interesting concept for Problets. Each problem is actually generated as a random instance of a problem template. So it doesn't think 3 plus 4 times 5. It thinks x plus y times z. So if I run the Problet twice, the first time it might come out as 3 plus 4 times 5. The second time it might come out as 6 plus 7 times 8. If 2 students are sitting next to each other, they won't see the same problem. If a student uses the Problet more than once, he or she doesn't see the same problem twice. So parameterized problems means that they can use this as often as they want. They don't really start to even notice that the problems are based on same templates. We can skip error flagging feedback. It provides step-by-step explanation of the correct answer. Error flagging feedback is when they answer something incorrect, it actually tells them it's incorrect, but not why, so they can actually go back to figuring out why. It does adaptation. Each module is set up with a pre-practice post protocol, which means it provides a pretest with one problem per concept. If they solve that problem correctly, it doesn't generate any more problems on that concept. If they solve it incorrectly, then it generates practice on only that concept. And if they have solved enough problems during practice to demonstrate mastery, Then it generates a post-test problem to see if they have learned it. So if someone knows all the concepts, they can bail out of a module in 5 to 7 minutes, or 5 to 9 minutes. If they don't, then they'll be there till the bitter end. I usually set this to 30 minutes, and so they'll be there for 30 minutes. I've had my own students say, oh, I tried to just, say, no, I don't know. I said, that's the wrong thing to do, because if you say you don't know, it'll keep generating problems. It'll never run out of problems. If you see the handout, I have listed the number of problems for each concept, and there are about 2,800 templates built into Problets. You don't have to come up with problems. Those are templates, 2,800 templates. Each template can be instantiated into an infinite number of problems. So when I say bitter end, I do mean they'll never finish it. Okay? Problets help improve learning. That's the conference where you can, I can give you results if you want the papers. This is an interesting thing. It helps improve the self-confidence of female students. I have seen quantitatively that female students do indeed come with lower self-confidence than male students, not related to any cognitive ability whatsoever, but they do come in with lower self-confidence. When they use Problets, I have noticed that after they use Problets, there is no difference between male and female students when it comes to self-confidence. So I say, if for nothing else, for that alone, you would want to use Problets, because they get to practice these concepts on their own time, no stress, and that makes them feel better. It also helps improve the ability to write code. I have seen this result. I mean, that's the conference where I have a result published. Logistics. How do you end up using Problets? All you have to do is, Problets are designed to be minimally burdensome on the instructors. A lot of times we go around thinking, instructors want to customize these things. They want to be able to do this, do that. I'm an instructor. I know how many demands you have on your time. You don't want to do that. You want to be able to use it with minimal amount of effort, right? So all you have to do is send me an email saying, I want to use it on, I didn't mention, it is available for Java, which is probably the majority of you, also for C++ and C#. It's also available for C and for some concepts on Visual Basic. Send me an email saying I want to use it for Java or C++, and by the deadline, so I'll have to set up a website for your class. That website identifies your name, your school, and the language, and anyone who goes to that website is identified as your student. And then you just send your students to that website. You tell them which modules to use and when. It's entirely up to you. You don't have to use all 17 modules. Use only 3. Use all 17. Doesn't really matter. When you want to use it, what order you want to use it, it's entirely up to you. And if you want to find out how your students did, send me an email. I'll send you an Excel spreadsheet. I usually run the reports over the weekend when I download all the data. And so I send you an Excel spreadsheet, which essentially says how many problems they solved, what they scored, how much time they spent, how many concepts they learned, and even which concepts did most of the students have problems on. Because there is also a table of concepts by students, right? You can use it for closed lab exercises, that is spend classroom time in a laboratory, because they have to have, each one has to have his or her own computer. You can use it for after-class assignments, which is how most people use it. You can use it for in-class testing. For this, I'll have to set it up so it doesn't provide any feedback, but that's easy to do. You can use it as a supplementary or optional assignment, and you can use it as a refresher. I have teachers often say, my students learned Java last class, but they seem to have forgotten most of it. I want them to use it as a refresher. This has been used, by the way, this is not a new product. It's been used 10 years continually by third parties over the web, and used by several K-12 school districts in Florida and Georgia and Texas and so on and so forth. Do you guys know Seth Reichelson? There you go. Okay. He was a big evangelist for this Problets last summer. He was going around telling everyone, and I had a rainfall of people asking to use it. It's free for educational use. There is no charge associated with it. These are some of the numbers of how many people have used it repeatedly. Repeat adopters are first time usage, anyone wants to use it and just goes away. A second time, well, they may be making a mistake twice in a row. But if they use it 3, 4, 5 semesters, then you know that they are deriving benefits from this. And additional detail is in Problets.org. If you're interested, you can fill out one of those forms and give it to me. I'll be happy to give you a second copy of the form to take home with you. Okay, and I'll put you on a mailing list, and this mailing list sees very little traffic, twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall, saying, hey, you want to use this. So no danger of you getting spammed by anybody. So if you're interested, fill out the form, give it to me, and I'll be happy to give you an extra copy to take home. If you want to explore more, it's at Problets.org. If you go under topics, you have sample, all 17 modules in all the languages are already out there. Good? Yeah. I could, but I haven't tried it. My laptop died last night, yesterday. Okay, so do you mind if I use the web? Okay, let me see if I can run it, because I have to launch a browser. Okay, Firefox. This is the Problets website. If you go to topics, you see all the different concepts. I'm going to use one on Java. See, this is what I was afraid of.
It's okay, just click activate. It should just.
Okay. Allow now. Okay. Java has gone crazy lately with all the security and so on and so forth. So I usually don't want to use, a machine for the first time to do a demonstration, but it looks like it's going to come up.
I think it's in another window.
Yeah, it's behind this, so I'm looking for. Oh, there it is. Let's run it. Do you mind if I click on this? Okay, this is just instructions. I'll skip through this. Here is an expression, 5 by 7 plus 5 mod 7. I'm going to say I'll do 5 by 7. See, I had to select the operator first, one operator at a time. 5 by 7, it's really 0 because it's integer division, but I'll say 0.7. And that is incorrect. The error flagging, it shows 0.7 is incorrect, but it doesn't tell me why. And then I'm going to say this plus 5. I'll say 5.7. Oops. And, well, the step is incorrect. That's why it's in red. But the intermediate result is correct. 5 plus 0.7 is 5.7. So I still have one more step to go, but I'm going to click on Submit Answer. Notice the explanation that it provides on the right-hand side. It says, well, this is what you did. Here is the highest precedence, this is the lowest precedence, and it shows graphically as well as text explanation at the bottom. I'm going to skip this here. Oh, do you have a power cord?
It's okay. Sample got us to the end. It's okay.
Okay. Then you go to the next problem. Okay. Now let me close this out. Let's try something else on, say, let's say if-else statements in Java. All right. I'll skip this again. And there's a program in the left column, which is actually a complete program. These programs actually compile and run if you actually, copied them over. And it asks to identify the output of the following code. I'm going to say I don't know, and this is the correct answer. And then it explains step by step how the program executed. Now you'll see at the bottom there are playback controls. I have disabled them. Do you see those here? Okay, I can enable them, in which case it actually goes line by line with the program and the explanation. I disable them because they have 30 minutes. Oh, the battery died.
I thought the 7%. It is 11 o'clock, however.
Okay, but you're welcome to.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Any plans to, this is amazing, are there any plans to develop it for Python?
Not in the near future. Python is a completely different model. Besides, but it's on my list, but I'm not sure when I'll get to it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And if you're interested, fill out the form. I'd be happy to give you a second copy. I'll be right here.